Hey everyone, I'm going to go ahead and re-record this since obviously we had some technical difficulties and my slides were not showing up. So um, here, let's do that. So thanks again to everyone uh, for having me here um, at the AIGA conference again. It's super awesome to be here. I'm going to talk a little bit about a program um, that I've been working on for the past 5, 6 years, really since I got to WashU, and one that's really been sort of implemented in the last year and a half. So um, my name is Jonathan Hanahan. I'm an assistant professor of design at the Sam Fox School at Washington University in St. Louis, and I'm the co-founder and faculty director of this program, Fox Fridays. So I'm going to start with a couple of um, generalizations, but I think we can all, I'm assuming many of us in this room went to school in a time that was um, a little more optimistic than it is right now, right? And can sort of cherish the fact that like the the sort of optimal design education is one that really balances this relationship between strong disciplinary practices and opportunities to experiment with non-traditional forms of making, disciplines, et cetera. And that sort of the the that optimal situation of a low risk studio environment is this relationship between these two spaces, right? This sort of give and take where we can kind of push outside of those disciplinary boundaries and subsequently bring that in and challenge those, right? And sort of and push up against the norms that have been defined by previous generations. So it's really that experimentation that we need to push things further than where they are right now. And so um, the sort of optimal situation for that, the sort of the potential is this relationship between disciplinary and interdisciplinary studies where the studio environment can kind of toggle back and forth between these, where we learn those skills, but then we explore other disciplinary spaces. And I'm also going to assume that we all realize that the stakes are really high in art and design education, and as teachers, we are sort of like tasked with trying to kind of help push, help sort of help students through this space that is increasingly high stakes, right? And I'm not even including the sort of pandemics or politics that we're dealing with at the moment, but I think this sort of the pressure cooker that is the studio environment is only going to continue to get worse, right? And so as these pressures of cost and of time and of sort of fear of employability and all this sort of continue to mount, practices inside of the studio are becoming much safer, right? When students don't have the room to risk a project failing, we end up with a lot more safe decisions along the way, because students are afraid that this stuff every single project is so precious it has to end up in a portfolio or I'm not going to get a job, right? And in the short-sighted view, that fear sort of leads to this much more flattened curve. I think in the long-term view of our profession and our disciplines, this is a detriment to that space, right? Because we're never going to push up against those boundaries enough to challenge the norms that have been established. And it is that like low stakes risk taking that is required to evolve the field. So yeah, just as I was saying, this sort of leads to this, rather than these sort of like diverse interdisciplinary spaces of exploration, we end up with a sort of monotonous disciplinary best practices based studio environment. And so something that I've been really trying to explore really since I began as a educator is like, where can these opportunities for risk taking be reinstated into an already and likely increasingly expensive and time crunched curriculum. And so I'm really lucky to be teaching at the Sam Fox School at Washington University, and that's largely because the school is built on this interdisciplinary mission, right? It is the Sam Fox School is a interdisciplinary umbrella on top of three really rich discrete spaces. So the Sam Fox School encompasses the College of Architecture, Art, and the Kemper Art Museum. And so these desires for interdisciplinary expectation or exploration, you would assume would be easier to instigate in an institution that has interdisciplinary practice embedded in its mission statement. But that's not the case. And this is a really hard thing to push through or to kind of figure out the right way to do it, because even though this umbrella of interdisciplinarity is present, these are still three discrete spaces, right? That each have their own budget and their own schedule and their own accreditation processes and their own curriculums, right? So trying to kind of force that interdisciplinary experimentation in from the top down really wasn't working, and we hit all these roadblocks of funding and schedules and all this sort of stuff, right? So the solution was really to try to invert that, and rather than say we're going to use the Sam Fox School as an umbrella on top, we're actually going to think about it from the bottom up. And so that is what instigated Fox Fridays, which is this weekly low stress workshop series that runs throughout every semester, where we have one workshop that runs every Friday, and we turn one of our sort of resource spaces into an interdisciplinary workshop space. And so the idea with this is really to kind of change kind of the fabric of the Sam Fox School from this umbrella on top, or this cloud around, to more of like the fluid or the connective tissue of the school that sort of flows between all these spaces. Excuse me. And the idea then is to say, we understand that these disciplinary studios are really, there's a lot that needs to happen in here. And so we're going to push all of that sort of interdisciplinary experimentation into this space we've carved out on Fridays. So we've really tried to decide that that day in the week across the school is about these low stakes experimentation. And so the guidelines that sort of define what Fox Fridays are is these workshops are free for anybody to participate. They are not for credit, so they're just they're meant to be sort of just again, the sort of stakes are low, that there's nothing is required to come out of this. They're just a first come, first serve, sign up and participate system. Any instructor who's going to teach this receives a $350 honorarium, and that's regardless of rank, position, if they are a faculty member or not. We have staff that have taught some. We have people in the community that have taught some. Each workshop has a budget of $1,000. So that's sort of required to establish all the materials and all the equipment that we need to be able to run this workshop free to students. The workshops are all 3 hours in length, and they're staggered throughout the day so that they're available for as many students or as many people to participate as possible. The tool or process that's used in the workshop needs to be clearly interdisciplinary, right? So it needs to, while it can be a tool or a process or a resource that is largely anchored in a discipline, we want to show how that might push out of that space that it's sort of been hidden inside. Participants have to make something. There is no lectures here. This is really about sort of tangible making, either physically or digitally. But at the end of the workshop, everybody has to leave with having created something. And then those workshops need to clearly articulate what the next steps for its participants would be. So either that's experts in the community that they could contact to do a future project with, classes that they could take, et cetera. And so again, these are intended to be these sort of short, quick, low stakes, dirty investigations into tools, because we understand a big burden for students taking interdisciplinary courses is that they don't have that many courses, that they don't have that much space in their schedule, right? And so to commit to a full semester long studio in something they're not sure they're super interested in is a big, and when they know that they have like checklists from their discipline they have to figure out, it's a big ask, right? So we're hoping that these workshops allow students to kind of dip their toes into stuff that they think they're interested in, or that they don't even know that they're interested in, right? And after 3 hours, maybe those assumptions uh, are verified. Maybe they realize it's actually not what they thought it was, and instead of, you know, being in this course for a full semester, they're able to find something else that is actually interesting to them, right? So this is just a sort of a list of this things that we've run in the last year. They range from, again, like in-person, really sort of physical material-based things. They range from high technology things like 3D scanning and printing to really low-tech things like making paper, right? And they're often these very sort of like playful experiences that are less about like making a product that is going to be in my portfolio and more just trying out things that could subsequently influence my studio practice in the future, right? And they, so yeah, these sort of run the range of different experiences, communities that are involved, processes. They often end up leading to very like tchotchke-oriented outputs. So this is now our third semester running this program. We've run 28 workshops so far. These have been offered by a range of uh, departments across the Sam Fox School. So from art, design, architecture, and then we have and hope to continue when we can do more sort of in-person things, but bringing in outside experts from other institutions or from the field, from different various fields and industries to teach more tools and opportunities, right? These are also not just there for students. This is really for the entire community. And so we've been welcoming students, participants from across the board, but also from across campus and the surrounding communities, right? And what's really rich is that I'm really excited about our faculty and staff participation, that we get these moments where we have, students from the range of first year all the way through master's programs alongside faculty and staff that all come into a space on a horizontal plane and really just explore new stuff together, right? So we've had 493 people sign up for these workshops in the past 3 semesters, which is mind-boggling and super exciting. And a couple of the number that I'm most excited about is this fall, it's 201 number that's signed up for workshop this semester, because we really weren't sure if we were going to be able to do this semester. And I think there was a lot of conversations of how do we offer workshops, and we really decided that this is this program, which is becoming kind of embedded into the culture of the school, is really a value added experience. And especially in a time when we need these sort of like stress relieving community opportunities, we thought that Fox Fridays was really integral to that. So we built this year's program around this idea of nimbleness, about offering workshops in tools, technologies, and processes that we can adapt to the environments that we're in. So, you know, how we can do things in situations or with products that we weren't able to do before, how we can kind of translate things we would often do in like a specialized high performing space to our kitchen tables, right? And so this semester we've run 3 types of workshops. We've run software-based digital workshops, as you would expect. We've run a series of low enrollment in-person workshops, largely in spaces that we wouldn't have really considered running a workshop in the past because it could only service a certain amount of people. But this was an opportunity to still kind of profile some of these spaces. So we did this sewing workshop in the fashion studios, which introduced people to the sewing machines, and they subsequently made COVID masks and stuff. And the third, which has been really the most interesting, is these hybrid workshops where we're using the budget to create kits that we either send or students pick up of physical materials, and then they do the workshop collectively but remotely. So this is a workshop we did in the spring, which was we sent the participants these Arduino kits, and they built these photovoltaic robots at home, but together over Zoom. And then this is a workshop for silkscreen that we did this semester where students were given these kits, which they get to keep, which is a super exciting thing that they now have the tools to continue to do this process. But we sent them, a silk screening kit, and they did the workshop collectively, but in their their own kitchens or their own spaces. And what's nice about this is you can't see in this image, but this is an image of two roommates who did the workshop together on the same table with the rest of the group over Zoom, right? So these sort of community opportunities and just these playful spaces, even though we can't do the most optimal versions of these processes, are empowering, I think, to be able to think about how we can still achieve the things we want to creatively, even if we're limited in the scope of how we do these things. So thank you, everyone. I'm glad I could redo this, and apologies for my slides not showing up the first time, but I'm happy to chat with anybody who wants to reach out about the program, about how we operated, about how we might be able to make it happen at other schools, because this sort of I'm really passionate about the fact that this low stakes play and low stakes sort of experimentation is integral not only to our students, but really to our profession and our disciplines pushing beyond their current state. So thanks, everybody.